Well, good morning, dear friends. Oh. Hello, little people. Hi. Hi, sweetie. Ooh. Just enough to melt your heart, isn't it? I have a 14-month-old grandson who's teaching me a lot about how we create a self in little beings. I'm going to talk about that today. As always, the main theme of what I'm going to speak about today is love. And a long time ago, it's really a long time ago, I had lunch at an Indian restaurant recently. And the young woman who was serving me was recently from India. She's from Punjab. And we chatted a little bit, and I asked her if on the trains they still had those unfired earthenware cups. Used to be that you'd get your chai, get your tea, and then when you were done with it, you just throw it out the window, and then it would turn back to earth. And she said, "Oh, you know, I did see one of those in an old movie one time." And then, oddly enough, in a certain way, for the first time with awareness, I did the calculation. It was half a century ago that I was riding the third-class trains in India. Good grief. You know what that means? I am really old. And it's like it was, wow. And of course, India isn't like that anymore. There were still steam engines, actually, a few. So I'd like to make two requests this morning. One is, for the longest time we always sat in a circle, and I didn't want to sit up here. It has such implications of being up here, as though I'm supposed to have it all together and be brilliant and things like that, and the guru sort of notion. And we always sat in a circle, which has a nice message to it, which is that we're really all in the soup together. So if there's 3 or 4 or 5 of you who would be willing to come sit up here, I'd love it, because then I wouldn't be so isolated. And you don't have to, but it would be really, it would be a relief to me. There's one brave soul, KB, yay! It's just us. Oh, here comes Jim. Bring your chair, though. Oh, bringing that, okay. Come on, 1 or 2 more, come on up. And you can sit kind of facing the group, too, see, so we can see each other. Yay, Kyra. One more brave soul. I promise I won't call on you in any special way. You just get to sit up here, though you will be on TV. This does feel better. This does feel better. Okay. And the second is, if you'd like to just remain in silence, please do. But the second is to turn toward your neighbor and introduce yourself and tell them one thing for which you're grateful this morning. Just a simple little greeting. until I started playing the guitar. I could never tell. People kept stopping and tuning. I think, God, get on with the music. Quit the tuning. And then I started hearing. It's like, oh, God, that guitar's out of tune. It's funny. It's the trouble with becoming discerning. Life becomes much more complex. All right, that'll do. So please join me in the how many new people today? Raise your hand. There were a few. Wow, a bunch. Welcome. I hope this is nourishing and engaging, and actually my real hope is that it completely transforms your life into great happiness and contentment and much more love. And if today's kind of big, it's our biggest gathering of the week. There's 4 other times with different teachers. So if this doesn't quite fit, please try those. And if that doesn't quite fit, keep looking, because Portland is a hotbed for all the great traditions of the world. So the refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha is this. There's a traditional way it's chanted in Asia, and we've developed this. Betsy Rose developed this little tune for it. It's refuge in being awake, and with that awakeness, embracing life as it really is, the Dharma, and doing that in the company of our beloved friends, because this journey inward is so difficult. There's no way to do it alone, really. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. And again, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. Real quietly, I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. I found that so funny because I dared to look up from the music over at KB and completely lost it. It's like, stay with me. Oh God, you can too. All right. So, what I was going to say before. In India, 50 years ago, 45 years ago, there was a beautiful teacher, a wonderful woman named Krishna, Buddhist teacher, and I was desperate for my meditation to be succeeding, to be getting somewhere. And I asked her, how will I tell if I'm getting anywhere, if my practice is working? And she smiled at me and said, oh, Robert, you'll be becoming more loving. That's the talisman, really. We'll be becoming more loving. We'll be kinder with ourselves. We'll be kinder with people around us. We'll be more patient with ourselves. We'll be more accepting of our difficulties. And there's a lot in the modern Western spiritual tradition that isn't that. Right? You'll get control of your mind, and you'll be able to do fancy this and that, and you'll be able to go out of your body and read people's minds, or you'll never feel bad, or you'll totally be beyond all compulsions and addictions. And that's not particularly human. There's a real violence in that. So I take refuge in the Dharma, in the way things are, means that our meditation becomes a turning toward and embracing things as they are. And from that comes personality growth and more kindness and so on. But it's really the practice is all about softening into what we discover in the present moment. So let's do that. We come to this sitting posture. It doesn't have to be cross-legged. I always like to say, because we have some magical thinking about the posture in the West. And the Buddha sat cross-legged because he was from a small village in North India. If he'd come from Colombia or Bali or many other countries in South America, he would have been squatting, and then we'd all be squatting, saying this is the superior posture. So instead, let's sit however you're sitting, comfortably upright. And notice that there really is a body here. There really is. A sperm and an egg came together, and then the miracle of consciousness occurred, and a baby was born, and then went through somebody training to become you. And this all takes place in an organism which borrows its nutrients from the earth. We could say that the earth peoples herself, just like she Douglas firs herself and wails herself. Flourishes herself as the peas in my garden growing inches a day now. And it's possible, eyes open or closed, to notice that this body really is alive. You can notice that by the life, the tingling, vibrating in your hands, for instance. Or the contact of your body with the cushion or the chair. It's a big thing to stop activity, outer activity, and to turn inward. It's actually a pretty rare phenomenon on the earth. Almost exclusively, we humans are rushing around trying to get somewhere, trying to create, to fashion some sort of security, some success, to have enough pleasure to feel full, or to avoid discomfort enough to not be troubled by it. But to stop like this is a totally different strategy for happiness. It's the strategy of, I will wake up and accept what's happening in this moment. And with that, then, I will study its constant changingness, its unsatisfactoriness, its noticing that I never arrive anywhere. There's always this process happening. And with this clear, increasingly clear mindfulness, heart mindfulness, I will see if I can find that which I call myself. So sitting, breathing, noticing that there are actual sensations to breathing. It's a physical phenomenon. And so this breathing, these sensations of breathing, or perhaps the life in the body, in the hands or the face or the feet or the legs, these can provide a home base in reality, in this present moment, aware of the body. And of course, there's more to human experience than the body. There are all the sense doors, the seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting, and also the mind. So lots happens in the mind, things like thinking, planning, remembering. Liking, disliking. We became the dominant species on the planet because of the capacity to abstract and to create images of the future, which then we can prepare for. The downside of this is that it tends to lead us to worry and anxiety, as the mind imagines things that likely won't ever happen. So we don't make of the mind an enemy. Instead, we take refuge in the Buddha, in that which is awake, that which knows thoughts as thoughts. And so there's a very delicate tuning that we do with some emphasis on coming home to the breath, to the body that sits. And using this quiet, gentle intention to illuminate when thinking happens. And so we wake up to thinking again and again and again. But remembering that sign of progress, you'll be becoming more loving. How loving can you be to those worrying thoughts, or to that sad mood, or that angry mood, or how loving can you be toward that malware which is self-critical of you, self-hating? Loving meaning that there's room for it to come into being and then disappear. And so we'll sit in silence now for a while, noticing how the body is alive and sits here and breathes, and does so many other things as well. one of the characteristics in the mind that's awakening is curiosity. What's happening here? What effort am I making? Am I trying to get rid of something? How much awareness is there? Is this a mind that's concentrated or dispersed? Is this a mind that has a predominant mood? How intimate is this awareness with the actual sensations of breathing in and out? Meditation practice is a beautiful and perfect place in which to realize that we're always starting over. Every second, really. That which existed a moment before is gone, and that which will exist in the next moment has yet to arise. So when you discover that the mind has been entranced somewhere, lost in a mood or thoughts, and then waking up happens, that's the great success. Those are moments of awakening to what is. And then if we wish, if you're working with a primary training object, a home base, then you can come back to that, to the breathing, for instance, the sensations in the chest and abdomen. But it's not as though we have failed when the mind wanders. That's kind of silly thinking. That's just the nature of it. But we're always beginning again by awakening and then applying our intention to concentrate somewhere a little bit. And no violence is needed. Doesn't help. So in a way, one could say that we settle back into this present moment and we embrace what it is to be a human. And if there's too much discomfort in the position you're in, simply mindfully move to a new position. Mindfully meaning notice the discomfort and notice the intention to move and then gently move. If there is discomfort in the mind or body, the practice of loving means that we allow it to be, that we rest into it, that we embrace it in a way. That's the way home to our fullness, to our wholeness. And please now notice that your body sits here, miraculously alive. Feet and legs, pelvis, torso, the back, the sides, all the way from the pubic bone to the solar plexus, to the chest and neck. Drop into it, not so much to create an image of it and think about it, but realize that in fact there are hands or there are sensations that we interpret as hands. There's the forearm and elbows and upper arms and shoulders. There's the neck and the face and the cheeks and the eyes, the lips and the scalp, the ears. This is what we each take to be, quote, my body for a while. And please bring awareness into the region of the eyes. And let your eyes move around a little bit in their sockets. And then noticing the intention in the mind to let the eyes open. And then let them open slowly. Takes some effort though, doesn't it? Tightening the muscles somehow of the eyelids, and then lifting them up and away. Notice how seeing happens. Objects appear. Seeing. Seeing mindfully. Seeing, knowing that seeing is happening. The fact of seeing is totally common among sighted human beings. The knowing that seeing happens is really rare. Just like the knowing that hearing is happening or the knowing that thinking is happening. And it's that knowing, Ajahn Chah called it the one who knows that which knows. It's the knowing that is the refuge in the Buddha. Mr. Dalton, are you capable of leading some movement? I'm going to tell on you. Jim Dalton was here 3 weeks ago. Is it okay if I tell on you? And we moved 2 very large piles, one of compost and one of bark chips. And I saw him out there, and I thought, he's shoveling as if he was a teenager. And he looked great, you know? But I thought, God, I don't know, I don't think I'd want to work that hard. And then guess what happened the next day? He was getting out of his car, and something went, eek! And so he's been out of commission for a bit. So he too forgets that he's more than 50. Old, that's right, my elder. Ooh, that was funny. So, please take the helm. And for those of you here for the first time, Jim will do some movement, and then Avi, who's here, will do some announcements. And then I'll be offering a reflection on the importance of the ego, sort of. Oh, hang on.
So that's back in place. All right. I've tied a knot. Well, I'll worry about that later. So when we begin our Tai Chi, I met somebody in the hall today that I haven't seen for 8 years. She and I were training trainers to become helpful with senior population, maintaining balance. And so my mind has been going to Tai Chi for the last 40 minutes. Okay. So let's do some Tai Chi in honor of Pam. Okay. So what we were learning was to sink and rise, which is one of the basic openings for Qigong also. But the idea is that you, as Robert was talking about, there's a mechanical process of letting your wrists lead up, bending your elbows, letting the heel of your hands lead down. And that's useful information to kind of guide the introduction to this process. But then the real power comes when you're intimate with it. Robert was talking about becoming intimate with the breath. What about intimate with the shoulders? Intimate with the elbows? Intimate with the knees? And then, because the mind is not the enemy, as we heard last Sunday, I was tuning in from home. The way we think about, some ways of thinking about things are more powerful than others. So if we think about this as lifting water out of a creek and pouring it into the legs, lifting energy up from the earth and pouring that energy into our legs, then this whole process becomes much more intimate, much more mindful, much more present. Okay, so that's the opening for Qigong routines and many Tai Chi routines. The routine that we were teaching the seniors was to open, like we just did, and then bring your left hand across your midline with your palm up and your right hand on top, and then bring your left foot in next to your right, but keep all the weight on the right. And then step into the left foot, slowly changing the weight and turning the ball. So again, that's the instructions, that's the description in words. Stepping across, one hand is coming down, the other hand is going up. Stepping across, one hand comes down and one hand goes up. And the goal, if you have a goal, at the beginning you need a goal. And that is for the two hands to arrive at their destinations at the same time. So one way of describing that is to say, keep mindful of the position of both hands. But after a while, there's another way of describing it. Let the two hands talk to each other and keep each other in line of sight. The two palms are recognizing how the other one moves. Let them do the coordination and get rid of that ego that wants to control everything. Surrender to the body. The body has this intelligence. It can step and gather. All the weight's on one leg, step and gather. And we become intimate with the shifting of weight. and the carrying of the ball. And then we got real fancy with the seniors because our physical therapists were telling us what we had to do was to pull back like a slingshot and then release the ball. Make sure the hips were limber and flowing also. So we weren't just stick figures, we were spiraling across. So the hands are intimate with each other. The feet are intimate with each other. They know how to pass the baton. The weight goes one side, then the other. Now we're going to add one more piece. In addition to pulling back like a slingshot, we're going to step into the heel first because seniors have a tendency to kind of shuffle. And their calf muscles atrophy. So we're balanced on the right, we pull back, and we put the heel down first, and then transfer the weight. And that wakes up all the nerves in the sole of the foot. It's just the heel and then the whole foot. Pulling back, heel, and then the whole foot. Pulling back. So suddenly you discover that all this intelligence in the body. It can be balanced, whether the elbow's back here, or whether the heel's on the floor, or the whole foot. It's lovely dancing with you. Okay, then we'll open the stance, cross the wrists, lean forward, and feel your toes work. Unfortunately, we can't lean back because we don't have toes back there. But we can feel the toes and then come back to the beginning. So let's put all that together. We start with our feet close together. Feel try this. Move your arms around and see how little risk you want to take reaching, especially in the back. How limiting this narrow base is. It's like 1 square foot. And then open. Now, so the first step is to be in that position. The second step is to reach over, and now you have 2 square feet, and you've got a lot more confidence. So how you establish the foundation changes your behavior. Did the Buddha say something like that? I think so. Okay, so then we sink and rise, drawing water out of the creek, and then pouring it into our legs. And then shifting all the way to the right, we have this ball. We bring the slingshot back, release it to the left side, and balance. Bring the slingshot back, release it to the right side. Remembering that we're stepping into our heel, and then the rest of the foot, and across, and again. And then reaching out with the left foot, balancing, crossing the wrists, leaning forward, making the toes participate a little more, and then relax down and come back to that narrow base. So that's the first lesson we'd spend teaching the trainers. And then what we always do here is some Qigong. So at the end of the class, we would cross our wrists, and bring soft hands to the heart, open the thumbs, open the arms. Relax back to the center, soft hands to the heart, stretch the thumb, stretch the arms. So what's happening is we're kind of stretching across the heart and the lungs and massaging them by placing our thumb in this weird position. It's an internal self-massage. And then we reach up for the sky and push down towards the earth, then reverse. And this particular combination of gestures massages the liver and the spleen. And then rock back, well, not rock back, but pull your shoulders back and empty. And this massages the kidneys, because suddenly your rib cage is pressing down the back on the kidneys and expanding, moving away. Once more. Then relaxing the arms, sinking, opening to the side, and coming down the center. So that's part of the training Pam and I did 8 years ago. She's not as old as Robert and I. Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning, Sangha. And good morning out there in internet land. Before I start the announcements, well, I had an announcement of a different kind. I came across something this morning that may solve one of the great causes of conflict in our time, and I wanted to share it with you. Yanni versus Laurel. Apparently, so the question is who's right? And the question is, we're all right. Really, it's like the New York Times, some audio engineer who works with the New York Times created this app that you can access that shows that the reason that some people are hearing it as Yanni is extra frequencies that are coming in based on your listening device. Some people have those extra frequencies and some people don't. And when you flip this little switch thingy, it sounds so clearly Yanni on one end and Laurel on the other. Thank you. I'm just sharing the good news with you. Please pass it on to other people. So things that are coming up. We've got on June 2nd, please save the date, the volunteer retreat with Robert. For anyone who has and does volunteer, this is going to be a great opportunity for us to spend some time together. Just a show of hands, how many people volunteer who are here? How many people help keep this place going? Everybody look around. Yeah, and in your heart, just give them a little thank you, because these are people who help keep this place going. And you could be one of those people too. It is a great way to facilitate community and a great way to get to know people. And in the course of getting to know people, we actually get some work done, which is sort of like besides the point. What really is important is community. And if you would like to volunteer, our volunteer coordinator, Kirsten, is right there, and she would be happy to talk with you about that. Also on the 2nd is the Portland Buddhist Festival. This has been going on for 15 years, and there's a number of communities represented. I went to a meeting this week, and they're really excited about it. If anyone would like to help staff a table, it goes from 11:30 to 4. And we've already got a couple of people. It would be great if we had like one other person, because there's some coordination that we have to do. So come and see me. Then on Sunday, June 3rd, we've got the first Sunday PIMC orientation with Robert at 9 o'clock. Then on the second Sunday on June 10th, we've got the PIMC potluck, so you can unleash your various casserole recipes on those of us in the community. Then on Saturday, June 16th, we've got another Qigong half-day retreat with Jim. If you liked what he was doing just now, you'll love 4 hours of it even more. And then on Sunday, July 7th, July 8th through the 20th, the Mountain Waters retreat with Robert. Are spaces still available? Yeah. Spaces are still available. Come get them while they're hot. Please, after the Dharma talk, please come and see us for hospitality. Have some tea and coffee with us. Talk with people. We're a pretty gregarious bunch for those of you who have never done it. And it's a great way to build community and have some relaxing time before going back to your day. Let's see. We also have, if you want to engage in meditation and Dharma talk on your own schedule, we have a number of spiritual friends groups that meet throughout the Portland and Vancouver area. If you would like to join one of these, there's information on the website under community. If you would like to start one because you want to be able to do Dharma stuff on your own time, please come and see me, and we can go through a process of helping you set up a spiritual friends group. We've got our Transitions Project donations over here. If you have anything that you don't need, your things that you don't need can help homeless people get back on track with their lives. And then finally, Dharma consults are available on request. What is a Dharma consult? If things come up in your practice and you feel the need to talk to a practitioner, Robert or one of the other teachers would be happy to meet with you in person, on the phone, or by Skype. Call me to make arrangements for that. So it's wonderful seeing all of you here. Have a blessed day.
Announcement mode still. Very simply, I invite you to engage your generosity to support this precious, beautiful, remarkable meditation center. You can do that online. You can do that in the bowl back there. That we vote a lot, profoundly, we vote with our checkbooks. And to vote for supporting this place is a vote to bring love into the world. Very soon, within a couple of weeks, you'll be viewing our rollout of our a short video that Sam, who's up there in the choir loft, and I so far are putting together. It's quite a remarkable project. We've got lots of footage now, and he's taking a little bit more today, and so you'll be seeing that. You'll also be getting something via email and speaking here about, imagine this, those windows go away, the middle windows, and there's a door, a really nice door with glass around it, and outside that door there's a deck, and from that deck there goes a ramp over to the back door, and then over and then back out, so that the place will actually become really wheelchair accessible. We managed to get Mark in here today with the aluminum ramp, but he can't make that happen. So we're going to be doing fundraising for that, and I trust and I think you'll really. I'm hoping that we do it in such a way that it becomes really an exciting group project. It's like, let's make this happen. PIMC will become the only Dharma center which is wheelchair accessible in the city. Imagine that. What if there weren't a church in the city that you couldn't, if there wasn't one, and that was your orientation? So more to come, and it'll be, I think, very interesting. Oh, and hello to those of you out on the internet. I failed to. Gregory is the stand-in for the. It's so good to know that you're out there, and I hear back from you sometimes. I got a text this morning from one person. Thank you. Lots of people watch these Sunday morning broadcasts live, and then many more actually do it on YouTube afterwards. Oh, and starting very soon, Ben, are you here? No, there's going to be a podcast, which you'll be able to go to iTunes, and you get your weekly podcast downloaded for audio. So, lo and behold. So, this is the underpinning. This is the phrases that have been going through my mind all week, particularly since yesterday. The classes had a day-long retreat yesterday, and this is probably my favorite quote, one of two or three. It's from a book called "When Good People Do Bad Things," which is not when bad things happen to good people, which wasn't such a helpful book, I didn't find. But this is a Jungian book by a guy called James Hollis. And it goes like this. The first line of the book is this: "The I that I know does not know enough to know that it does not know enough." The I that I know does not know enough to know that it does not know enough. The I that, what the hell does that mean? The I that I know does not know enough to know that it does not know enough. And then the next few pages, and I take some great liberties with this, but it's a summary of Jungian depth psychology, say this: the conscious ego is a fragile island floating on a vast sea of unconsciousness that we call the psyche. There exist within the psyche autonomous complexes which can and do usurp the ego. What does that mean? The conscious ego is a fragile island floating on a vast sea of unconsciousness we call the psyche. There exist within the psyche autonomous complexes which can and do usurp the ego. Something very weird is happening. And it's so normal for us that we maybe even don't think to question it, but not long ago, a sperm and an egg came together in optimal circumstances. And then a baby started. You, me. And then everything worked. And this, so many don't make it all the way, and then there's the pruning that happens. But in our cases, everything worked, and then we were born, and then we were cared for remarkably for a long time. And then, and particularly for this reflection, we went through extensive somebody training. And we became somebody. And I'm learning again. It's different being, surprise, it's different being a grandparent. It's also different being 70 years old, watching my grandson be trained to be a person. And I have what I think is a unique relationship with him. I think I talked about this last week, because I don't have a lot of interest in having him respond to me. I'm just curious, who is this? And I forget if I talked about this last week. I took him out, and I put him on the swing, and I pushed the swing, and he was just so content. I pushed the swing for half an hour. I took a slow motion video of it and sent it out to people, as grandparents do. And several people said, he doesn't look very happy. He was completely content. But anyway, we go through somebody training, and we get trained to be somebody. And we're trained by ordinary human beings who are flawed. Oh, speaking of which, I meant to start with this. I discovered something new here yesterday. Kuan Yin has toes. She has feet. She's in a human body. She's touching the ground. She's just like us, right? I was quite shocked. I was just kind of cleaning up over there. I was like, whoa, toes, never noticed before. So somebody training. We learn how to have a somebody, and we have to, right? If we don't, we're in deep trouble. We'll be institutionalized. And then we have this somebody, and it flourishes through the lifetime. And for some of us, it will go away before we die through dementia or Alzheimer's. And so that I've been around two people, my mother most notably. She never went all the way into not having a self anymore, but it was common. Hers was more through strokes than through Alzheimer's. But I've been around such people, and you know how it is, that they start forgetting who we are. And that hurts a lot. It's like you go visit your parent and they don't know who you are. And so they who helped you become the somebody that you are is losing their self, so they can no longer acknowledge the somebody that you've become. And then there's death. And I don't think anybody knows what happens after death, but I certainly don't. And but I've been around several human deaths and many pet deaths, and the somebodyness really stops. And then you're left with this corpse to take care of. So becoming somebody, there's a saying in the Buddhist transpersonal psychology world, you have to become somebody before you can become nobody. And so, one of the first things that, let me see how I want to thread through this. So I want to come back to the fragile island notion. Have you noticed how fragile your ego is? Something happens and boom, a mood comes in. And the ego isn't in charge of moods, is it? Or, this is the self-revealing question, please raise your hand if you have any addictions or compulsions that you know, wait, let me finish. That you know you'd be really better off if you didn't do them, but you persist in doing them. Why don't you stop? And I'd like to propose it's because you don't do them. Those are autonomous complexes. Those are parts of you that are not of your ego. They are not of your conscious island. In Buddhism, there's the three characteristics of existence: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the emptiness of the self. It's commonly translated as not a self. The self isn't an enduring entity. It's something, but it isn't an enduring entity. And learning about the truth of these is what insight meditation. Insight meditation is about learning about that, and also how we cause ourselves suffering. Impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the self is empty of solidity. It's not without structure, however. And so we learn to have an ego, and that's who we think we are. But it's not all of who we are, because we surprise ourselves. And we can't control things like we'd like to. The single most common misunderstanding about meditation, which results in most people stopping practicing, is that the goal is to stop the mind from thinking and enter a state of bliss and communion with God and be at ease all the time. Good luck. That's not been my experience. So what is it that we do discover? So the ego gets this idea, somehow or another the idea arises, I want to take more control of my life, I want to be more loving, I want to become more spiritual, and it undertakes a meditation practice. Asterisk, see if I can come back to that point. There's another completely, utterly different way of looking at this that I am very deep, and both are true. I think that there is a call from within. There's a book, von Durkheim, I think it's von Durkheim, The Call from Within. I think that there's something in me and in you which is saying, I really want to wake up. And it's a spiritual call, and it comes from the inside, and then the ego says, oh, I think I want to practice meditation, but that there's a mutuality happening. There's something in the universe that is really anxious to wake up. That's very comforting to me. So back to the asterisk, if I can. So I undertake a meditation practice. I sit upright. Hopefully I don't try to sit too cross-legged if I'm not fit for it. And then I have my primary object. I have the mindfulness of breathing, or Jason Siff, who was here last week, suggested pay attention instead to the life in your hands. That works great. Pay attention to sounds. But have some place that I'm going to come home to. Let's use the breath because it's the clearest for me. So I, ego, decide I am going to pay attention to my breath, and I'm going to sit here and be awake. La, 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 la. And then commonly, that's defined as failure. Right? I can't control my mind. Maybe it's not your mind. Maybe it's the mind. So then what's meditation about? The conscious ego is a fragile island in a vast sea of unconsciousness we call the psyche. If I want to learn to sail better, to sail my little self better through life, across this, or within this great ocean of the universe, whatever shall I do? Well, one thing is, I want to develop clarity about what I do have control over, and I want to strengthen my ego. I want to strengthen the capacity to be integral in the face of whatever's coming from inside. And I want to engage in the practice of mindfulness is so beautiful for this. I want to engage this mysterious human capacity to enlarge that which I know of. To enlarge myself. So here's my ego, and it's sitting in meditation, and then thoughts are happening, or emotions are happening, or maybe I become completely lost in a mood for a while, for a few minutes, or a few days, or a few weeks even, and then wake up and I realize, whoa, I've been caught in that mood. Is this making sense? You familiar? This familiar territory? Because we're engaging this mindfulness and the other enlightenment factors, which I won't mention right now, there's a way that the conscious aspect of our being enters into relationship with that which was previously unknown. So along the way in our meditation, we encounter the wounds of our childhood. We encounter if anger has been forbidden, if in my family of origin, somehow or another, this person made the decision, anger wasn't safe, so I will not be angry. Of course, there was lots of anger, but it was unknown to the ego. Something happened in my late teens and 20s and starting meditation. I had to encounter the fact that there was a ton of anger in here. And the same with sexuality, or being really intelligent. It's changing blessedly, but for the longest time we raised our girls thinking they weren't intelligent, so their intelligence was pushed into the shadow. So meditation develops our capacity to encounter and embrace that which we have previously not accepted in ourselves. And one of the primary ways we avoid seeing these things that are unpleasant, or ego dystonic is the psychology word, is we project them. We see them in others, and we do that as individuals, and we do that as culture. So it's one thing to meditate for stress management purposes, and that's great. It's another thing to meditate for some improving psychological and emotional well-being because our stress level is down and we begin to observe some of our patterns. So let me pause there. Self-hatred. Please raise your hand if you experience or have experienced in your lifetime self-hatred. Look around. There are some cultures, Tibetan and Thai, for instance, where they wouldn't understand the question because it's a cultural phenomenon. That's not normative for all humans. I talked with Achan Sumedho about it, and I heard from the Dalai Lama through Jack Kornfield and others. So self-hatred, what is that? Somehow or another we learned that's a way to keep ourselves in check, and we developed it quite highly. Self-hatred is not intrinsic to the self. It's a habit. And blessedly, I have so little of it anymore. It's just such a relief. But I've worked with many people over the years who learned how, here's consciousness, here's awareness, and the self-hatred happens, and mostly it happens out of consciousness. But then it becomes more apparent through meditation practice that self-hatred is happening, then it becomes clear that, oh, this is not, I am not doing this, it's doing itself. These thoughts think themselves. And then the more and more it becomes apparent that this is happening and can be illuminated with the light of mindfulness and love and compassion, then it becomes obvious it's running and then it's over. It's running and then it's over. And then with attention and grieving and loving it, then it attenuates. And then it gradually goes away. And how's it doing that? Well, it's this conscious ego that's encountering the complex that does that. Many years ago, 30 years ago, I had a marvelous journey. I learned so much with a particular woman who had a lot of self-hatred. And there came a day in our meetings when she came in jubilant that it's my grandmother. I have my grandmother inside. And then we worked with that for a while. And she, can I say this? Yeah. She came in one day really happy, and she had written the self-hating statements in large print and put them all around her home. And as she went through the room, she would go through and then she would expletive you, Grandma. And it was getting outside, and then it just diminished and diminished. So back to ego and in encountering these aspects of the personal unconscious. We befriend them, and then they become less and less of a problem, and our self becomes bigger. That of which we are aware becomes bigger. And the process of awakening has to do with continuing that until somehow miraculously there's a glimpse, perhaps, well, I'm not only my ego and my shadow and my unknown psychological emotional parts, I'm everything. But the mechanism of doing that, the foundation of that is love. Meaning, I'm willing to discover that in myself, which I have always held at a distance because it was too scary, or because it would threaten my relationship, or because I got spanked if I thought that or felt that. Is this making sense? That it's a movement toward accepting. Now, it doesn't mean that everything that emerges we accept and act out on. Time. Oh, good. There's been another school shooting. There will be another one. They're going to continue. How can we make sense of that? And how can we possibly live with that? I feel it myself as I say it. It's like, oh, God. And I think Jungian psychology helps me a lot with it. My worldview is a kind of Jungian Buddhist hybrid. They overlap. Carl Jung in 1925 was doing dream analysis. It was either in Basel or Zurich in Switzerland. And his clientele came from Switzerland and from Germany. And the Germans were having dreams that the Swiss were not. And these dreams were characterized by a figure that in 25, I actually saw this in the book where he wrote it, that the Germans were having a figure in their dreams that Jung termed the blonde beast. This was alive in the depths of the German psyche. It was something emerging, right? We like to think, oh, my ego is in control. But actually, the ego is a fragile island floating on a vast sea of unconsciousness. Within the personal psyche, there are autonomous complexes, and within the collective, there are oceanic forces. There exists within the American psyche something that is seizing young boys and turning them into killers. And unfortunately, we have easy access to the weaponry to make it really bad. When I heard of that one yesterday, my first thought, and I feel sad again, my first thought was, that poor kid. Another disaffected, probably very unstable, bullied, another young boy acts this out. And of course, and this comes from that incredible book, When Good People Do Bad Things. The ego, the conscious ego, we hold and we must hold responsible for the actions of that person. So he will be held accountable for that, and he will go to jail, and he won't be treated as would make sense, which is true with almost all of our prisoners, which would be love and respect and compassion, and to do what we can to help them become whole again. Because we think punishment works, and of course it doesn't. So, feel the change, right? Talking about this, heavy. How should we act? What should we do? Well, I believe that sensible gun control would be really a wise thing. But even if we got it in place today, it's going to take this thing is going to work its way through. It's a sign of something deep happening in the unconscious. So, what else can we do? I think that doing our own inner work and being as loving as we can, and it's part of creating community together, that what we do is we create a world, the world of our own psyche, which is the psyche of the world. Every thought we think affects everybody. Every feeling we have affects everybody. When I share the merits of this practice with all beings, it doesn't mean we need to go out somewhere and do something. We've already done it. When we take responsibility for the anger in here, for the hatred in here, instead of projecting it out, which we can easily do and say, oh, that terrible kid, or that horrible, that it's us. We are all part of it. And that there is something incredibly potent, and this is a deeply held belief of mine. I watched in my group on Wednesday night the great video that my teacher Matt Flickstein created. I highly recommend it. You can find, I think it's on Netflix still, With One Voice. With One Voice. And he interviewed 40 different mystics around, they were all, I guess, in North America. He interviewed them and put together this video, and there's a few others, I don't know that they'll ever be published. But it's so interesting hearing them to a person, from the Sufis, the Catholics, the Buddhists, the Hindu, across the board. They're all saying, what we do in our own hearts affects the world. And that it's also possible it's also possible for what we call mystical experience, for the whole, for the one, for the Buddhists call it the unborn, the uncreated, for that to manifest itself, and then for the ego to have a different relationship to the universe, because it's touched that. Right? Our locus of identity is, by design and by parental training and by the world's training, this is me. I'm me. I am my conscious ego and my body. But what if that really is a case of mistaken identity? What if who we really are is everything? And that as we look, take a moment, please, to look around each other, see the apparent separateness. What if it's only apparent? What if what you're seeing has emerged out of the earth, gone through somebody training, and is doing a lifetime of trying to find its way home? I think that's what's real. mercy. How kind can we be with ourselves? Do you give yourself time every day to be merciful and not have to be productive? Oftentimes, we think that in meditation we're doing something, or we're going to achieve something, or we're going to get rid of something. What if meditation is in its foundation just softening and relaxing and loving and accepting? Oh, I'm meditating and I feel so sad. So sadness is here. I'm meditating, I feel so joyful. Joy, there's joy. Meditating, and this, a news event has come in and I'm upset by it, or I'm angry, or I'm this and that. Oh, that's what's happening. Well, I don't have to do anything about it. I can, at least for now, just soften and soften and soften. And that in the doing of that, we are moving in the direction of home. I know my year-long class, we met yesterday, and we sat for 45 minutes, and walked for 45 minutes, and sat for 45 minutes, and then we had a silent lunch, and then we sat for an hour, and then we talked for maybe an hour, and I got so much saner just stopping. So please, without changing position, notice that something is awake in here. Right? It's seeing, for instance, or it's hearing. Notice that there's a mood present. And notice that the body's breathing. And what if there's nothing more to do than that? Then there come those times when the mind is worrying. I had worrying explained to me the other day. I don't know, forget where it was, but because we can abstract and create a future, the mind can then poke into it with fantasied scenarios. What's going to happen? Will the fish come? Will the bison run? Will there not be? Will the baby be okay? Will there be enough food? And so we create these fantasies of the future, and they're anxiety provoke. But that's how we survived, because we're always looking for the problem. Or it is, not we are, but it is. And so to become aware of that then is to be relieved of needing to do that all the time. So I'm having an internal debate that I think I'm going with my plan. I want to sing you a song. Part of me says, oh no, you should wait another year or 5, but I'm always apologizing. There's the real musicians in the group. Oh God, here it goes again. But this song has possessed me for several months, and it's very fitting for this moment. Let's see if we're in tune. It's fun to watch the anxiety. Oh, God, what if it doesn't turn out right? Isn't that funny? Weird. I need my tuner, though. So I invite you to just breathe and be alive and think about love. Love and how it manifests as mercy. Mercy meaning embracing yourself when you're suffering, embracing others when they're suffering, not requiring anybody to be so perfect as we do so much of the time, mostly ourselves. Okay, let's see how we go. My father could use a little mercy now. The fruits of his labor fall and rot slowly on the ground. His work is almost over. It won't be long, he won't be around. I love my father, he could use some mercy now. My brother could use a little mercy now. He's a stranger to freedom. He's shackled to his fear and his doubt. The pain that he lives in, it's almost more than living will allow. I love my brother, he could use some mercy now. My church and my country could use a little mercy now, as they sink into a poison pit. It's gonna take forever to climb out. They carry the weight of the faithful who follow them down. I love my church and country, they could use some mercy now. Every living thing could use a little mercy now. Only the hand of grace can end the race toward another mushroom cloud. People in power, they'll do anything to keep their crown. Oh, I love life, and life itself could use a little mercy now. Yeah, we all could use a little mercy now. Christian piece here. I know we don't deserve it, but we need it anyhow. We hang in the balance, dangled between hell and hallowed ground. And every single one of us could use some mercy now. Every single one of us could use some mercy now. Every single one of us could use some mercy now. Mary Gauthier sang that song, wrote that song. The conscious ego is a fragile island floating on this vast sea of unconsciousness that we call the psyche. And we're so identified with it. And it's so utterly not in control. Right? So, how can we not be merciful with ourselves and each other? Something one of my teachers said a long time ago, which was, actually my father said this. Oh, my father, bless my father. He's been gone 25 years. He said at a very poignant moment, Robert, we do the best we are. We do the best we are. Now that was wise. And I believe that's true for everybody. Every single human being on the earth is doing the best they are. And some of us have had, could you close the window, thanks. Some of us have had such abysmal conditioning that we can do heinous acts. Oh, I missed one piece with the Jung thing. I think Hitler was a conscript. Right? The German psyche needed somebody, and he had the perfect structure for it, and then look at the actions he did. Terrible. Terrible. Which doesn't mean not responsible, but worthy of compassion. Because if you look at the conditionings of anybody, it always makes sense. There's a field of psychohistory where one looks at world figures and then looks back at their childhood, and it always is ecologically. It's not like they got to some point and said, I'm going to be psychopathic. It's the wounds were there, and narcissism and inflation and avoidance of the shadow became essential for survival. So that's out there, but in here, how merciful can you be with yourself? And the leitmotif of my teaching always is, why not sit? Why not come often, come frequently? Why not come another evening to PIMC? Why not volunteer? Why not support the center financially, really richly, so that you really belong, and then really practice, and then come on a retreat, or go on a retreat to somewhere like Cloud Mountain. Talk to me about a retreat if you can't come to one of mine. To really put, here's this little fragile ego that the culture promises that happiness is going to come from Costco, right? I'm going to go into Costco and get happiness, or I'm going to go to my next fancy vacation to somewhere, and that's going to make me happy, or. And really, at some point, if we're so fortunate, that becomes tarnished, and then we start spending more energy and time looking in, because that's where it is. It's through realizing what we really are. So there's a few minutes, blessedly. Would anyone like to comment, add a question? Please, Connie. Please speak into the top and say your name. Thank you.
As always, Robert, you're right on for me.
I do it for you.
Yes.
Every Sunday morning you're here, I think,
Wow,
what does
great
Connie
subject.
need?
Yes. Thank you. I've been struggling lately with an old friend, and that is purpose. What is my purpose?
What's my purpose?
Because I've gotten a lot of my needs met, and I have time, and it's almost like it's painful. I remember asking Joanna Macy once, what is our purpose? And she said, to witness the beauty of the earth.
That sounds like Joanna.
I'd love to hear whether purpose seeking is about ego or what is it? What is it?
I don't know, but I asked the same question of Matt Flickstein, one of my teachers, Matt. And he said, life is neither purposeful nor purposeless, it just is. And so, what do you do with that? Jeez. So when I address that, my primary purpose is to wake up. I really want to continue waking up, and along the way to be as loving as I can, loving and generous. But beyond that, I don't know. It does. Oh, don't turn it off. It does all turn to stardust, right? 100 years from now, none of us will be even remembered if there are humans. Right? That's a real open question. I think I know better what it's not. It's not about self-aggrandizement and gathering more stuff. So that's clear. It's not about getting more and more power. I love that line in the song, people in power, they'll do anything to keep their crown. We're seeing that, aren't we? And my life is completely transformed by the fact that there was a royal wedding yesterday. It's the dress. Oh, the dress was so. We humans are really nuts. Any other question or comment? Actually, I'll say one more. Those poor kids getting married like that, what a heavy weight. What happens when they fall out of love and really have to start working at that relationship if they haven't already? Under that scrutiny and pressure, when they hit the real world of, geez, I didn't know you did that. Or, yeah, I thought, when you did that, I was so charmed by it then, and now it's such a pain. Can't you change? So, next, somebody. You'll have to push the bottom in and hold it for a second. The very bottom button. And hold. Now try. Try again. It's tricky. Okay.
On?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Right.
Thank you.
You were, I don't know anything about Jungian psychology.
You do now.
But from Dharma teachings I've had over the years, ego was always positioned as something that is there, but we don't we want to get away from it.
Right.
And I was, I guess, confused or struggling to understand what you were saying today in relationship to that. So if you could clarify.
Mm-hmm. There's a very unfortunate overlap between popular Buddhist terminology and Western psychological terminology. The Buddha didn't say, and I'm no Pali scholar and I don't know the canon really well, but what the Buddha said was that the problem is Sakya Ditti, is wrong view. And wrong view arises when a thought thinks itself And then what's added is, I thought that. It's the I, me, me, mine, mine song. And that happens at every sense door perception, which is the creation of the self, which is the sense of I am separate. And in Western terminology, that's one object relations function. That's one thing the ego does. But there are all these other things like orientation to time, and it provides a structural center for making our way in the world. And in fact, concentration meditation is all about strengthening the ego. I want to be able to concentrate sufficiently that these thoughts and feelings and emotions that are upsetting right now, I would like to be able to suppress them, thank you very much, and maybe even go into jhana. I'd like to go into high concentration state. Great skill. There's the other skill, which is the skill of opening, which is the mindfulness in which we allow that which is upsetting and so on to come in and then observe its impermanence. We do insight meditation. There's also another problem between the word insight. That the Western world, the psychology world uses the word insight. Oh, I now understand why I behave like this because of how I was raised. That's just very useful to some degree. Psychological insight. This pattern that I have arises out of the fact that in my case, I was left in the hospital when I was born. There's an abandonment issue. It affects my relationship, blah, 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 all that. The story. Useful. The insight of insight meditation is, oh, everything's changing. Oh, there is no place of satisfaction through sense door experience, dukkha. And, oh, I can't find a self in here. And then those open up intuitively into the insights of the unborn or the uncreated. Those are the insights into the nature of reality. So the Buddhist teachings don't mean let's get rid of the ego. That's a total misunderstanding. And it actually causes a lot of problems and confusion. I will post to the listserv today. If you're not on it, come and give me your email address. There's a great little article by Achan Amaro on, I think it's Amaro, let's not try to get rid of the ego. Because if we succeeded, well, when a person with Alzheimer's completely forgets everything, they are free of their ego. That structure's gone. And that doesn't look terribly, I mean, sometimes they can be happy, but it's not something that one likely would aspire to. But to not be attached, one more thing, I know the kids are here. The way to use the anatta teaching particularly helpfully is as a strategy. For instance, here's this mood. I'm really angry and upset or really desiring or whatever it is. Oh, is this myself? Or can this become a meditation object? And do I have to fight it? Do I have to struggle? Or can I just allow it to be? That's the really kind of a cross between the Buddhist and Western psychological models. And many of us, in my own meditation practice, I desperately had to strengthen my ego. Over it, and it's taken a long time because I was so swept away with impulses and thoughts and learning how to have, for that conscious island, to have a little bit of stability and not get buffeted so much from what's coming from within. That helpful? Thank you. Good question. Huh? Missed it. I'm not. It might be Tanisaro. I'm not sure. I know exactly where it is in my file system, but I'll send it out to the listserv. And then, if any of you aren't on the listserv, you could be on the listserv very easily just by going to the website and doing that. Or if you really want that article put in my hand today, a little piece of paper with that. Not too little. I'll lose it. So thank you very much for being here and for listening so attentively. And aren't we lucky to be together like this? So let's bring in the wild creatures, partially tamed. Thanks for sitting up here, you guys. It felt much better. Thank you, Avi. I'm going to sit on this side. Hi, Nisi. Hi. Hi. Did you guys have fun? Yeah, I heard you outside. Sounds like you're having a good time. Look, it's stars. It's like looking out at night. Oh, nails. Oh, sparkly nails too. Ooh, cool. May I hold your hand? Oh, I think I may just disappear into these nails. They're so sparkly. May I hold your hand, Nisi? Oh, your wet hand. It's fine. I don't mind your wet hand. Are you in? Good. Oh, great. Holding, not squeezing. So, aren't we lucky to have hands? If we were just the disembodied universe, we could not form this circle and be together like this. So please feel the hand on the right side and give it a little squeeze. Not a bone-crushing squeeze. Just a little squeeze and feel the life there. And then the hand on the other side, on the left side, give that one a little squeeze. And these minds of ours are capable of anything. So let's think a kind thought, some blessing for the person on our right. And the person on your left, may your life be filled with great awakening, happiness, joy, love, and compassion. And let's extend this out to all beings, everyone in our circles and in the homes around us, and in fact out all over the world, to all these beings who we are already, our brothers and sisters of the air, the earth, and the waters. And so, we come to the moment of the song. Who is the person or persons today? May all beings be happy. You want to do it? Okay. So, may all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. And now the ancient ritual where everyone gets to, before I do that, please come have a cup of tea and goodies and visit a little bit. And thank you to all of those of you who joined us out in the internet. And let's all take a nice big deep breath, and then on the count of 3 we'll blow out the candle. You ready? Not yet, not yet. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yes, yes, and no hair caught on fire. Terrific. So please introduce yourself to your neighbors and come and have some little gathering together. It was great. Oh, back there too? Oh, good. Well, thanks for doing that. I have the video.